justice runs cold.
Truth melts everything.
They built the storm, and now it's snowing subpoenas.
Arctic Frost Exposed, in theaters now.
7,000 federal agents just pivoted from hunting cartels to hunting Antifa. The Department of Homeland Security has launched the most aggressive domestic terror investigation since 9/11, and they're following the money straight to the top. Undercover operations, IRS audits, foreign funding probes. While that unfolds, the Arctic Frost conspiracy that spied on 400 conservatives is collapsing, with its architect hiding at Microsoft. And then Trump dropped the nuclear option, naming names on live television. The man he accused of leading the entire operation, Barack Hussein Obama. This isn't cleanup anymore, it's payback, and it's just getting started. As we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing we've all learned, it's that uncertainty isn't temporary. It's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal isn't a plan, it's a gamble. For over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves and the people they love by diversifying their wealth with gold and silver. Look, no one knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing is for sure. In an uncertain world, real wealth isn't digital, it's physical. It's lasting and it's yours. So when you're sitting around the table this holiday season, surrounded by family, remember, the best gift you can give isn't under the tree, it's peace of mind, and that's what Noble Gold delivers. Peace of mind, 1 ounce at a time. Before the year ends, take one smart step towards a safer future. Visit nextnewsgold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's nextnewsgold.com. Don't leave your future to chance, and learn how you can get 10 1-ounce silver holiday coins with qualified accounts. They would make great stocking stuffers. The number on the screen, 877-646-5347. President Trump just named Barack Obama the leader of the gang, he says. This is not rhetoric. This is an accusation of treason from a former president.
You look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. You look at those.
Crooked Hillary. President Trump says Obama and Clinton orchestrated the election interference, weaponized intelligence, and covered it all up with help from a complicit press. Thousands of documents are reportedly about to surface, if true, the biggest political scandal in history. What will happen next? Well, on the Sunday morning futures, Senator Ted Cruz spoke about new details uncovered in Jack Smith's Arctic Frost investigation.
The entire Republican political Arctic Frost was the vehicle by which FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors could improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. This was clearly a fishing expedition.
And that's Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley exposing the level of unchecked power Special Prosecutor Jack Smith had during his so-called Arctic Frost investigation, as Smith sought nearly 200 subpoenas to track the phone records of Republicans. All of them appeared to be directed toward Republicans and staunch supporters of President Trump. No other reason. In one instance, my next guest, Senator Ted Cruz, had his phone records subpoenaed, with federal judge James Boasberg issuing an order to AT&T Cruz's cell phone provider, to release his records and not tell the senator about the order for at least a year. According to Cruz, Judge Boasberg justified his decision, saying there's reasonable grounds that the senator will destroy or tamper with evidence on his phone if he finds out that he is being tracked by Jack Smith. AT&T ultimately did not comply with the subpoena against Cruz, Cruz said, citing the speech and debate clause in Article 1 of the Constitution. However, Verizon did comply with Smith's subpoena for phone records of lawmakers who used that carrier, according to documents reviewed by Fox News Digital. Verizon just...
Republicans. So he went after the Republican attorney. Days later, the Biden Justice Department appointed Jack Smith. His mission ostensibly was to investigate what had happened 2 years before on January 6th. But remember, the Biden DOJ had been locking up little old ladies who were protesting on the National Mall. They'd been doing that for 2 years. Jack Smith was appointed with one mission: stop Donald Trump. Do not let the American people vote for Trump as president. And he took his orders and launched a dragnet, the scope of which has never been seen. He issued at least 197 subpoenas directed at over 430 individuals and organizations, all Republicans. So he went after the Republican Attorney General's Association. He went after Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. He went after Citizens United, and he issued subpoenas to 9 U.S. senators, all Republicans. I was one of them. The subpoena he sent to my cell phone record, AT&T, was for my cell phone records, my voicemails, my texts, the communications in and out, the geolocation. And he sent it to AT&T. As you noted, AT&T did the right thing. Their lawyers looked at this subpoena and said, we can't hand this over. This is protected by the speech and debate clause. However, AT&T also got on top of that subpoena an order signed by Judge Boasberg that ordered AT&T, you cannot let Cruz know about this subpoena because, as you just read, he found as a judicial matter that if I was notified, I would destroy or tamper evidence and tamper with witnesses. Now, that is absolutely absurd. Verizon, unfortunately, did hand over the records of 8 senators. The speech and
all the way to the top. Merrick Garland approving the investigation and the spying on sitting U.S. senators for Jack Smith's investigation. Here's President Trump talking about retribution.
To run for president?
Is this retribution on your part?
No, it's the opposite. I think I've been very mild-mannered. You're looking at a man who was indicted many times, and I had to beat the rap. Otherwise, I couldn't have run for president. They tried to get me not to run for president by going after me and by indicting me.
Is this retribution on your part?
That's how bad it was. We all remember. Senator Eric Schmidt, we're just starting to uncover the unprecedented ways the federal government and Justice Department was weaponized against Trump and conservatives. Accountability is coming.
Government and for the viewers at home to really understand the scope of this, it really is breathtaking. And I mentioned 100 times worth in Watergate. That may be an understatement. What happened was 3 days after President Trump announced he was running for president, the entirety of government and the Justice Department was weaponized against him to bankrupt him and his family and put him in jail for the rest of his life. So what happened? In Atlanta, a state case was, created to go after President Trump. The number 2 person in that case met with the White House. Alvin Bragg in New York began his criminal trial against President Trump, and the number 3 person left DOJ to go join Alvin Bragg's office. Then, of course, you have Jack Smith, who's notorious in prosecutor circles as the henchman you assigned to go get your person, the show me the man, I'll show you the crime kind of prosecutor. He's a total dirtbag. Brings this case against President Trump. But it wasn't just a war against a man, Peter. This was against a movement. So Arctic Frost was going after not just President Trump, but sitting United States senators with subpoenas. The Republican Attorneys General Association, I happen to be the chairman of that organization at the time, Charlie Kirk's organization, this massive dragnet to sweep up people because they were Republicans. That was their crime. So this is sweeping. It's huge in scope. We're just getting this information right now because of whistleblowers. If President Trump wouldn't have won, all this stuff would be buried. But whistleblowers have come forward. We need Watergate-style hearings for months on this to continue that investigation. There ought to be probably charges brought, eventually resignations. And one final point, Judge Boasberg, who's become notorious from the FISA courts, also making a speech trying to thwart President Trump's agenda before President Trump got in. And then, of course, somehow ending up with all these cases in the D.C. area, even though he wasn't the assignment judge, actually wrote in an attachment to these subpoenas to the telecommunications companies that you can't tell Senator Cruz, you can't tell these other senators that the subpoena was out there because they would destroy evidence. That's just beyond the pale, and I think impeachment proceedings should begin in the House of Representatives. For the viewers at home, to really...
President Trump.
Letitia James Comey, John Bolton, Letitia James were all recently indicted. There's a pattern to these names. They're all public figures who have publicly denounced you. Is it political retribution?
You know what? You know who got indicted? The man you're looking at. I got indicted, and I was innocent. And here I am because I was able to beat all of the nonsense that was thrown at me. And yet, when you go after a dirty cop like Comey, or a guy like Bolton, who I hear I don't know anything about it. I hear he took records all over the place. Who knows? Letitia James is a terrible, dishonest person, in my opinion.
Did you instruct the Department of Justice to go after them?
Not in any way, shape, or form. No, you don't have to instruct them because they were so dirty, they were so crooked, they were so corrupt that the honest people we have, Pam Bondi's doing a very good job. Kash Patel's doing a very good job. The honest people that we have go after them automatically.
James
Going after them automatically. Arctic Frost leaders who are still at the FBI, Aaron Tapp, James Barnacle, Joe Rothrock, Devin Kowalski, and Wayne Jacobs, all still at the FBI who oversaw Arctic Frost. And we have this. 8 hours ago, national security alert. Biden DOJ Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, who helped mastermind Arctic Frost, a sweeping partisan probe over target Republicans, gets a top job at Microsoft overseeing global affairs. She has no security clearance, no federal access, and a track record of overseeing investigations targeting her political enemies. We're demanding DHS immediately review and terminate Microsoft's contracts. America's security is non-negotiable. 3 hours ago, Mike Davis posts this. Exhibit 5. What is this? Comey knew top aide was talking to media, emails show. But this Exhibit 5, James Comey from his burner Gmail with his alias, James Comey's alias was Reinhold Niebuhr. No need at this point. It would be shouting into the wind. Someday they will figure it out. As Jack and Ben point out, my decision will be one a president-elect Clinton will be very grateful for, though that wasn't why I did it. The New York Times op-ed page asked me to write something on your letter. I'm not inclined to do so, but if you think it would help things to explain that you owed Kong absolute candor, your credibility with Kong will be particularly important in the coming years of threatening Kong investigators, I'll do it. Reinhold Niebuhr. No need at this point. They'll be shouting to the wind. Someday they will figure it out. And Jack and Ben point out my decision will be President-elect Clinton will be very grateful for. So apparently he believed that Clinton was going to win. Trump U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan files public response to Comey's motion to dismiss his indictment for vindictive prosecution. Exhibit 13 includes bombshell damning evidence of then FBI Comey handwritten note on FBI director letterhead, evidencing Comey's knowledge of and even participation in the Russia collusion criminal conspiracy against Trump. This is Comey's handwritten letter, handwritten notes.
Bombshell news that just moved a couple of minutes ago over at justthenews.com. We've been following the story of James Comey. He's indicted for lying to Congress, saying he never authorized any of his staff to leak to the media. And late last week, as we told you, he played the victim card. I'm being maliciously prosecuted because Donald Trump hates me. Well, today, the Kash Patel FBI and the lead attorney prosecuting his case, Lindsay Halligan, Well, they responded, and they responded with a lot of evidence. What did they respond with? James Comey's own emails and his own handwritten notes. And what do they show? They show that James Comey was clearly aware that his top aide was providing information anonymously to the news media. Not only was he aware of it, he wrote in a private email, "Good job, my friend," actually congratulating him when Dan Richman, one of his top lieutenants, told him what he had just done with the New York Times. Yes, just like the indictment said, the story was about Hillary Clinton's email, so it backs up the government's case that Comey was authorizing leaks to through his staff to reporters concerning a Hillary Clinton case, just like they argued. But
look at that headline. Comey expected to work for President-elect Clinton. New top aide was talking to media, according to the emails.
They went a little bit further. It turns out that when Kash Patel found those burn bags in that secret room where a whole bunch of FBI evidence was sitting, they found something special. Some handwritten notes by James Comey. What do those handwritten notes show? He appeared to be aware in September 2016 that of the U.S. intelligence intercept that Hillary Clinton had approved a plan to hang a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's house, campaign house. Now, that's important because the handwritten notes don't match with James Comey's testimony. James Comey told Congress, that doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I ever knew about that. He wrote about it in his hand notes. And finally, one will ask, well, why would James Comey do this? What was the motive? Today's emails that were just released in the court filing give us one other answer. He wrote to Dan Richman, his lieutenant, that he fully expected soon to be working for President-elect Hillary Clinton. That's right from the emails. So he was waiting to work for Hillary Clinton, and he thought that Hillary Clinton would be grateful for the way he did things in handling her email case. Uh-oh. That wasn't what the victim card I think James Comey was planning to play. But all of that emails, all of those letters, all those court filings, even the handwritten notes, we just posted them at justthenews.com. You can go check them out today. We'll have more of that breaking news all throughout the night.
And I just showed you the handwritten notes, the emails. This is crazy. Wow. Biden's DOJ basically illegally weaponized the federal government against conservatives and the Republican Party. Microsoft hiring Lisa Monaco has disastrous consequences for Republicans in future elections. The D.C. Board of Medicine, shifting to the AutoPen scandal for a moment, the D.C. Board of Medicine must review every action taken by Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Representative James Comer posting this 9 hours ago. While he was serving as a White House physician to Joe Biden, the Board of Medicine must hold him accountable through discipline sanctions or even revocation of his medical license.
Infrequent.
Void. No one who authorized AutoPen or actually physically manually pressed the power button on AutoPen ever heard directly from Joe Biden. And furthermore, there are no notes. There's no chain of custody that would show that Joe Biden was involved in any meetings where they discussed the pardon process. This is a massive cover-up, and what we determined was every pardon should be declared null and void.
And all of a sudden, the left is against. Is your committee narrowing down to a number of suspects who you think are singularly responsible for this, and what kind of punishment are they facing?
Well, look, if they were operating as President of the United States, if they were forging the President of the United States' signature on pardons and executive orders and other legal documents, then I think those are pretty serious crimes. The Oversight Committee, we investigate. Once we conclude an investigation, we publish a report and we make referrals and recommendations based on the overwhelming evidence that we accumulated in the form of emails, in the form of notes and documents from National Archives, and in the form of hours and hours of depositions. We concluded that there was a massive cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. The staffers knew it. That's why they discussed whether or not to give him a cognitive test and then ultimately declined against it. That's why Dr. O'Connor pled the Fifth Amendment to avoid self-incrimination. But even further, there's no evidence that Joe Biden was ever involved in any of the decision-making. And normally when you have meetings and discussions on things like pardons and other high-profile events that would be presidential level, you would have notes, you would have meetings, right. There would be emails, there would be things in the schedule for meetings, nothing pertaining to Joe Biden. We gave every staffer, the 12 staffers that we brought in for depositions were the ones that we knew had the influence over the auto pen. They all were inconsistent in the process. The emails were even contradict what the deposition said. And at the end of the day, I think we've gotten as much information as we can get to determine what we've determined. Now we've handed it over to Pam Bondi, and we've made notes to the Attorney General. If there's further things that we can do as a committee, we'll do them. But we're going to wait for guidance from her. This is a serious issue, and all those pardons should be declared null and void.
Yeah,
null and void. 9 minutes ago, Comey tried to get his indictment thrown out, only for prosecutors to drop even more explosive evidence. The handwritten note from Comey himself reveals he knew about the scheme behind the Russia collusion hoax. FBI Comey, handwrites the Russiagate playbook. This proves he not only knew about the plot, but was involved in the setup. Comey is screwed. Wow. The auto pen scandal continues. Biden's staff was unable to prove he signed off on the most consequential pardons. There's enough evidence to prosecute family members, Fauci and Schiff, and the entire January 6th committee.
On and on and on. Many were granted pardons by the auto pen on the last day of the Biden presidency with no record that Joe Biden played any role whatsoever in the authorization of those pardons. So I think all those pardons, from Dr. Fauci to the Biden family to Adam Schiff, the January 6th committee, the list goes on and on and on. I think every one of those pardons signed with the auto pen with no evidence that Joe Biden was involved in the decision making, I think every one of those can be declared null and void by the Department of Justice, and I think our evidence in the investigation will make that decision hold up in court.
There's a lot of information coming out here today, from the auto pen to James Comey. It is, and here, look at this. Whoopi Goldberg loses her mind after she was handed a note to correct one of her lies that Trump used the auto pen to pardon individuals.
The other insane thing is that when people are going to go to their meetings with the judge, the meetings that they're supposed to go to, when they're listening to, what the hell, what?
I love when Sonny passes notes.
We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part. It was a joke.
Yes. We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part.
Come on.
But we do know that he didn't know who that crypto guy was.
Well, I'm sorry. You know, the hardest thing about this job now is
that you can't just lie to the American people anymore and call it a joke.
No one understands nuance. You know when you hear a joke, when somebody's fooling around, when they're not saying something specific, especially on this show. I'm very specific when I'm pointing stuff out. When I'm making jokes, you know when I'm making jokes. This is ridiculous.
Poor Whoopi having a meltdown because she got corrected. Speaking of getting corrected, we got some awesome news. The Department of Homeland Security that works with prosecutors to pursue drug cartels, war crimes, and money laundering is shifting resources to investigate Antifa funding as federal officials implement directives from Donald Trump. Trump's Antifa crackdown steered to agency that targets organized crime. It's a serious priority, says senior Trump official about DHS office known for fighting drug cartels and money laundering. U.S. Department of Homeland Security Organized Crime Division targeting Antifa's left-wing terror network. This Trump administration is going all in on ending Antifa once and for all. Their funding network is about to be ripped to shreds. Senator Ted Cruz, 22 hours ago, has introduced a bill that would ban foreign billionaires like Soros from financing activist rallies like the left's No Kings.
Trump has done Look, I think you're right. I think he is scared for his political life. And the Democrats today are a party of radical interest groups. Now, I will say one of the most important things President Trump has done recently is he has pledged that he's going to go after Antifa. And what I've been urging is follow the money, cut off the money, And you look at this No Kings rally, and there's considerable evidence that George Soros and his network is behind funding these rallies, which may well be riots all across the country. And Soros is writing the check. And so I've introduced legislation called the Stop Funders Act that would add rioting to the list of predicate offenses for RICO. Why is that? Because it would let the Department of Justice use RICO, racketeering, to prosecute the money that is funding the anti-Semitic protests on campuses, the pro-open border protest in LA and other cities, and these No King protests. Anyone that is supporting rioting and violence, it lets you go after the money. And I'll tell you, there are more than 200 left-wing groups behind these No Kings rallies this weekend. They deliberately are blind to what each of the others are doing. That's part of how they avoid accountability. RICO is designed for precisely that sort of criminal enterprise. And so I believe the Senate...
Yeah, well, we got to get the Senate to open up the government first. But he's on the right path. Continuing with more of this news. This was posted 24 hours ago. I think it was an earlier moment in the Oval Office when President Trump disclosed that Soros and Reid Hoffman are funding Antifa.
Portland, and you are paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. And it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it. Every night, and this has gone on for years. They just burn the place down, and you know, the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4-inch plywood. They don't put storefronts because they know it's going to be burned down. These are professional agitators.
That's right.
These are bad people, and they're paid a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know. I'm sure I know some. I don't. If I knew, I wouldn't associate because I'll be in trouble because Pam will say, "Why are you associating with this person?" But I will tell you that these are bad people, and they're paying a lot of money, millions of dollars. But take a look at Portland sometime. These are crazy people, and they're trying to burn down buildings, including federal buildings. And on my list of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, and we have to. We cannot let our cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent example. It's every night, and they've done it for years. You'd think maybe at some point they made their point, and what are they doing? But we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators and anarchists. They're actually anarchists, yeah. Go ahead, why don't you defend? Let's see you defend them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. I just want, so that we can just explain this in our stories. Could you name a couple?
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead, let's go. Maybe let's give you another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros. What names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is a name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know. Maybe could be him. Could be a lot of people. We hear the same names. But they're bad, and we're going to find out. And if they are funding these things, they're going to have some problems because they're agitators and they're anarchists.
Paid people.
President Trump naming names in the Oval Office. That was right before Portland got cleaned up. We reported on that. Continuing here, Antifa militants. This is 24 hours ago. Katie Daviscourt posting this. Antifa militants hunt down federal agents as they attempt to leave the ICE facility in Portland. Agitators blocked their vehicles, resulting in ICE SRT officers rescuing their colleagues. Looks like Portland is not as cleaned up as we thought.
Pedestrians have the right of way in the crosswalk and speed board. Clear the road! Clear the road! Bitches! Get up! Get up! Let's go, boys! Get that fucking pushy! You fucking bitch! Do something! Thank you, guys. A bunch of pedestrians in the fucking crosswalk.
Taunting ICE agents. Here is this 24 hours ago. Nick Sortor, just in HSI, which is DHS division used to pursue drug cartels, war crimes, and money laundering, shifted resources to investigating Antifa funding. Antifa's days are numbered. 8 hours ago, Tea Party Patriots posted that when Biden weaponized the DOJ to go after conservatives, Americans noticed and their concern led them to the ballot box a year ago this month. Arctic frost is a sham, and Senator Johnson nailed it by calling it so. There's no legitimacy to the Arctic frost investigation.
Government, again, there is no legitimacy to this investigation. It's completely political, as has been the case ever since Donald Trump came down that escalator in New York back in 2015, 2016. Again, this is a weaponization of the federal government. We know exactly what President Biden thought about half of America, that we're all potential domestic terrorists, and he sicked his federal agencies. He weaponized them against ordinary Americans. Again, there are 38 Wisconsinites that are targeted on the enemies list in the most recent documents we released. I know most of these people. They are God-fearing, country-loving, law enforcement respecting individuals. They would never think of committing a crime. They're involved in politics because they want to save this country. They love this country. It is sick. It is outrageous that they'd be on the Biden administration enemies list.
Arctic frost continuing to unravel. Just as James Comey's case is unraveling, Antifa funding unraveling. I mean, you guys could not have asked for better news today. We all want justice. We all want resolution to the pain we endured during the Biden administration. It's happening on all of these fronts right now. And it's absolutely wonderful to watch. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this is what accountability looks like. For years, Antifa terrorized our cities while the FBI spied on soccer moms at school board meetings. Now Trump has just flipped the script. 7,000 agents hunting the real terrorists, the IRS following Soros money, undercover ops infiltrating their cells, Arctic frost leaders who targeted 400 patriots thought they'd get promotions. Instead, they're getting investigations. Lisa Monaco hiding at Microsoft without clearance. That's not a career move. That's a guilty conscience. And when Trump named Obama as the ringleader, he wasn't making accusations. He was serving notice. The shadow government that weaponized our agencies against us is being dragged into daylight. So here's my question for the comment section. Should every federal agent who participated in Arctic frost face criminal prosecution? Let's have a conversation in the comments below. And while the deep state scrambles for lawyers, support real journalism at our merch shop. It's linked in the description.